David Brister here with another 3-for-all, and this is 3 strength building Albert King licks. And Albert King, of course, is a blues legend, and Albert influenced everybody. There was a period of time where, people like Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton, and eventually people like Stevie Ray Vaughan and tons of other guitarists were directly influenced by Albert and his music. And Albert, of course, is part of the 3 kings of blues, B.B. King, Albert King, and Freddie King. And there's something you can learn from each one of those players. And even though they all shared the same last name, they each had a different kind of approach and sound in their music. So we're going to basically build strength from bending. And string bending obviously is a very demanding technique on the guitar, because you physically have to push the strings and you're changing, the pitch. You're raising the pitch of a note by, bending the string or pushing it either, toward the ceiling, or you're pulling it, toward the floor. And Albert bent strings in a very, kind of abrupt and almost violent kind of way, because he picked really hard. He grabbed the strings very hard. And so when he would connect with a bent note, it had this bell-like, very sharp kind of quality. You're going to be using a little bit more pressure or, finger strength as far as, how hard you're pushing the string down. So it is demanding, to really get the sound just right. You really have to dig in, pick hard, but you also have to fret hard, and you're kind of tugging, the string. So we're going to be in the key of A, or A7. In the key of A, the minor pentatonic box is right there. But Albert King's box, which, B.B. King had a box, and Albert King. Freddie didn't really have a box named after him. Freddie just, kicked all kinds of butt. I really like Freddie King. He was a, great musician and guitarist. I love Freddie. But Albert, he loved to kind of sneak up, above the box shape. And he basically play with the, out of the next position of A minor pentatonic right there. But the Albert King box is just this little 5-note pattern right there. And if you listen to Albert King and also people like, Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan, you'll hear those licks. And what he would do is he would kind of play around in his box, or his, his favorite little fingering, and then he would kind of walk back to the minor pentatonic scale, and then go back to his preferred box right there. And the first one, it comes out of his box, and it's right there. And we're basically bending, the same string, but with 2 different fingers. And I'm really kind of digging in there. I'm picking hard. I'm also fretting and pushing that string very, very hard. And then after I bend with my 3rd finger there on the 10th fret, bending that D up to an E, then I'm grabbing, the C note with my index finger and basically bending that up a half step to C sharp, like that. And then I'm basically finishing with that A note. So it's really cool because the D is being flirted with and kind of bending up to the E. And then the C is kind of being flirted with and bending up to the C sharp. And then you're finishing on the root note, A. Now, Albert loved doing that. And there I'm basically picking with a downstroke, and then I'm also picking again on the C with an upstroke, like a little, just kind of slight upstroke. Like that. And you can accent both of those notes. And another thing that Albert liked to do with this lick is he would introduce what I call a ghost bend. And that's where, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to bend the D note up. And then while that's bent, hitting that note E, we're going to release the note D, strike the string again, and basically catch the C sharp that's right there. And then that note's going to be basically, a different note. It's going to be closer to a D. And then we'll release that note to the C, which is going to be, flirting with the C sharp, and then finish with the A. So I know it sounds complicated, but if I play it and then play it kind of slow, you'll see how this works. Like that. And that's tough because now we're introducing, 3 fingers, and we're, using 3 fingers to bend 3 different notes on the same string, which that's challenging, but it's also really good for chewing up your fingertips. And then sometimes, especially Stevie Ray Vaughan, you could hear him do this, and he would actually, he'd grab a double stop on that C sharp. Like that. And there you're just allowing 2 notes to be hit. So you're doing double stop bends there. Once you have that lick under your belt, you should find other positions and try it, using different strings, which of course it's going to change the sound. So on the B and the high E, it has a very bright, thin sound because the strings are obviously thinner. Now if we move it up to the B string and then also incorporate the G, it sounds just a little different because the strings are a little thicker, right? It kind of lost a little of that bite. If we move it up again, we'll be on the G and the D string, and it'll definitely lose its bite way up there. It doesn't even really sound like the same lick anymore. So depending on where you put that lick, it'll have a different flavor, a different sound. I prefer it on the thinnest strings, just so it kind of cuts through, a little differently. The next Albert King bending lick is going to require bending with your pinky. And I know everybody that just heard me say that's watching this is probably thinking, oh no. But yeah, you definitely shouldn't avoid using your pinky. You should try to use your pinky whenever you possibly can. Obviously when you're stretching, but for other things too, like this. Yeah, you could play this bending with your 3rd finger, but we're trying to build strength here. So don't be a fret hand wimp or whatever. Use that pinky and just try it, because it's going to build strength. And who knows, you might end up, actually, enjoying using your pinky to bend for things like this. So we're targeting the note A. We're still in the key of A, by the way. But we're targeting the note A. But before that, we're going to grab a C and bend that up to a D, and then release that, down to the C sharp, and then finish with the A. Now that takes a certain amount of control and strength, with your fret hand to be able to bend, to the correct pitch, and then release the bend, and then bend to the next pitch, which is, slightly below where we first bent. And that's tricky because we're bending to 2 different notes. Now the last lick here, we're going to basically be bending and using extended range bending. So we're going to be going farther than a whole step. So right here we're going to bend an A up to a C. So that's a minor 3rd. And it's important to listen, to the note you're bending to, and make sure it's actually that C, right? Now the next bend after that would be a major 3rd. So now we're bending 2 whole steps. So now we're getting like into David Gilmour type territory. But David Gilmour totally picked up this extended range bending from people like Albert King. So the mystery, is kind of revealed a little bit there. So we're going to basically bend, this A up to a C sharp instead of the C natural. Now keep in mind that's obviously much harder to execute because we're bending much further than we just did bending to C. And it's really cool because you can kind of mirror, licks and phrases that you play fretted, and then you can kind of imitate it bending. And it's interesting. It kind of plays with your ear when you hear that. It's kind of cool to hear it both ways. In closing here, one thing you can do is play with all three of those ideas and just kind of, riff around or improvise, but play, the first lick we introduced there. Also play with the pinky finger bend we had. And then also play with the minor third and major third bends. That's going to wrap this 3-for-all lesson up, and leave some comments and some feedback, and let me know if you've noticed a difference, in your hand strength after working some of the, with some of the ideas in this lesson. Because, when you're digging in like that, and you're really grabbing the string and bending it, and really pushing, the strings around, you should definitely feel it, in your hands, for sure, your fret hand, in the wrist and everything. You should definitely feel, working those muscles and kind of building some strength. Anyway, please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back with some more content before you know it. Thank you.